And within 3 days, I lost all my contracts. All of them. We're talking $400,000 worth of them. I hit rock bottom.
Every time there's a roadblock or a challenge or a problem, there's always an opportunity. In this week's episode, I sit down with Esther Zeledon, scientist, diplomat, coach, author, and founder of Be Act Change.
People were like, you're not going to survive. You got to go find a job. So all the noise around me was you need to go back to follow that American dream.
Esther shares her journey of self-discovery, resilience, and service, and what it took to break free from the noise of societal expectations to build a life aligned with her values and purpose.
The work this year was about reminding people that we all have power. The power and light exists within us.
If you've ever felt pulled between expectation and fulfillment, or how to turn life's detours into stepping stones, this conversation will give you both the perspective and the tools to navigate your own limitless path.
I want to be on the right side of history. I know exactly what I need to do. I need to go back to I am of service. I am of service.
Stepping out of the noise and helping us to live an inspired and aligned life this week is my guest, Esther Zeledon. Welcome, Esther.
Hey, I'm so happy to be here.
It's absolutely tremendous to have you on an episode. Paul, your husband, who I interviewed in the Share podcast, he spoke very highly of you and what you both do together. So I knew the day would come that I would be able to have you on an episode and share your beauty with the world.
Amazing. Yeah, he also spoke really highly. He was like, it's going to be great.
Very good. Now I'm looking forward to it. Esther, what does the noise of life mean to you?
The noise of life is for me, it's layered. Noise of life has a couple things. So one, for me, is like on a positive note. It's like the voice in my head that's telling me about the bigger impact I can have, the next person that I can like help, reach their destination or their aspiration or their dreams. So I will say that's like the noise I love to hear, in my head about like all the amazing people and their ideas and even the noise of them sharing their ideas and like. But then there's the other noise, which is, I think, all the naysayers, the doubt, the fear. And so I think there's all these different frequencies and noise all around us. And so I think the noise there's all this noise, and it's about which one do you want to turn up higher.
Yeah, exactly. So Esther, growing up in an immigrant family, what did success look like for you?
Oh, well, that's a very loaded question, I think. I didn't think, and I read about this in the book, I didn't think I had the right to think about what success meant to me. So I think growing up in that environment, it was all about, we came to this country, we did all these things, I sacrificed myself, like my parents were like, my dad was a politician in his country, or my mom had an MBA, and it was like, here she was working service and he was not, doing what he wanted to do. So it was about the sacrifice. And so really the success, the way it was defined is you have an opportunity here, so you have to use it. And that opportunity was about creating safety and security for myself, for them, and maybe my future family. So that option of what success meant was really tapered around, I think, like unfulfilled purposes that the generations before me felt that they couldn't fulfill. But at the same time, this is where we talk about noise, right? It was that noise was there. And I think I will say that in some parts, you can always be, I like doing these I'm going to go on a little tangent, but I like doing this letter writing process where you write a letter to something and then you burn it. So, and in that letter, you show gratitude and you also release the things that are not yours to carry. So I do have gratitude towards some of that noise because I think it made me into the heartfelt high achiever that I became, in the sense that I saw also my parents be really in service to others. So I think it made me be like, okay, I'm going to be a high achiever. I'm going to do this for something, not for myself, but for them and my community and the people after me. And it did teach me like to go like be curious and knowledgeable and navigate complex systems and never give up. Thankful for that noise. Not thankful for the that purpose is not for immigrants, that it's a first world thing, all that narrative, the scarcity mindset around that, the fear based around that. That's something that I learned to release. And that's something that I realized that that was a noise that was not mine to carry.
Mm.
And it was something that I always wanted to go after, purpose and alignment. I always had that question, and it's funny because actually like recently, earlier in September, I finally got to meet the author that really inspired me my whole life, which was like James Redfield and the Celestine Prophecy. And he was the book I picked up that gave me a different noise. It gave me that perspective that actually like it was like a very adventurous like book and following your purpose and your path. And I saw myself as the character. And it gave me that light I needed. And because then I was like, I don't think that's true. That purpose is just here. And I'm going to spend my whole life proving that it's not true. And but I'm going to follow this, face safe path, their version of success. But I'm going to release that someday, somehow. I don't know how. And so I think I didn't give myself permission to really release that until later in my life, when I reached everyone else's check marks of what success meant. And then I basically realized that I was right all along, that that was not my success. And so,
Mm.
but once I was able to give back, and how I was going to give back, and have the check marks that everyone else defined as successful, I'm like, it's my turn. And I had already at the same time already had traveled around the world, had talked to a lot of people, and there was every corner of the world, people had that voice, and
Mm.
had aspirations. I saw from fishermen to CEO, people all had all hats, all different classes, all different political circles, religions. Everyone had a different aspiration, had an aspiration and a dream and a purpose. And so, through my work, I was able to show that, guess what, that noise is real, and we have it, and it's inside of us. And that's when I was like, okay, that means that, what, it's time for me to follow it. And so that's
Yeah.
when I changed. And so I put the knob higher of what my version of success was. But it wasn't easy. Like, it wasn't even easy doing it older, because they didn't understand it. I wouldn't say they supported it. They feared it. And it came from a place, it came from a good place, in the sense like they were worried about me losing my safety and security. Um, but I think I'm really glad I did that, because then it did pave the path for all the people around me that wanted to do that and saw me do that. Actually, today, just a friend texted me that, because I said, oh, I don't, I was kind of questioning, oh, I don't know, like like, because I'm also a coach, right? So the line between how you serve people, like friendship and work, it's really blurred. So I was like, what value do I bring outside of the coaching to people? And she was like, what are you talking about? Just watching you do your journey inspires me that I can do it too. And I was like, oh, that's really beautiful. And so and it's not the first time, right? So I realized that it helped pave the path. Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. So obviously, being part of an immigrant family, you came in, as you explained, you're kind of
Yeah.
like, you've got opportunity and you've got to make the best of the opportunity here. Obviously, tell me, was there a moment that you realized that the American dream wasn't your dream?
Oh yeah. Well, a couple moments in my life. So I mean, my story was complicated, because I had the double thing where I was immigrant, and like coming to this country, navigating all those things. At the same time, though, when I was 2, I was given 3 weeks to live, and my dad actually won the lottery, and it saved my life. And they used all the money to spend that on me. So I had two burdens. One of, we then, because then when they returned, I got well, that's when the Civil War happened, and we had to leave with suitcases. So I lived with two things. One, the immigrant thing, that they had sacrificed everything to come for the opportunity. But then I had the second layer, that the money they won, they used on me. And that could have changed their circumstance and situation, and their immigrant experience would have been very different with money.
Mm.
And so I carried both of those aspects. So that's tied to why I didn't think I had permission to think about what I wanted. I followed to one. I had the double layers of making them proud, not be a burden, be the fixer, all those things. And when every check mark, I realized that I couldn't figure out why I was empty. And at first, I thought it was that I was a person that could never be happy. Because when I was a teenager, I had this situation where I had like my first breakup, right? But it wasn't about the breakup, it's that I was sad and I wasn't the perfect kid at that time. And so I did try to take my own life away. And a lot of people did not understand why would I do that? I was like a straight A student. We never even addressed it at home. Like I got really sick, and the doctor is the one that put me aside and is like, "Are you going to try that again? Like, I need to know if I need to intervene." And I was like, "No," but like, and I had gone really skinny, but we never discussed it. They just like helped me through it, and that was it. But the root cause of it was that because I was sad, I felt like I was a burden, and if I felt like I was a burden, I wasn't adding any value. And so when I was checking the marks, so it wasn't automatic for me, the American dream revelation, because at first I thought, oh, I must be someone who constantly seeing the negative side of things, right? So
Hmm.
when I got through the check marks of getting into the top school and college, Swarthmore College, at first it was really hard and I had to graduate. But when I graduated, I wasn't, for example, I thought lightning, I would feel lightning. And instead I felt like, oh my God, there's still another ladder to climb. And when I graduated from my PhD, it was like I was more happy that I helped my dad finish his doctorate than myself. And then I was like, well, it must be because I still have to go get that job and earn lots of money, right? And then I struggled to get my first job because I didn't have the network. I didn't have the whole, navigating the system. But then I finally learned the system and I got my first job. I climbed the ladders in diplomacy, became a director, did paid all the dues. And it wasn't there that I thought magically I had the salary, I had the 6 bedroom house, I had the full help, I had every single check mark you can think of. And I was like, wow, I'm still not happy. I'm still not, like, there's something missing from this. And I remember going home and because every other time I felt it, I was like, well, it's because I have another ladder, or because maybe I have this perspective where it's never enough, or I'm not enough, or whatever. But it was the first time though I started to think, man, I don't think it's me. And so I went home and I told my dad, I don't, like, I was in Christmas and I was like, I don't know, but I really think I need to leave this job because it wasn't necessarily a job, because I was like, I know it was an impactful job. I was a humanitarian diplomat. I was making a difference, but I told him it just does not feel like my legacy. And it's really hard to describe because I know I have everything that all of you sold me that I should have. I have it, but it just doesn't feel right. And I think I have a bigger legacy. I feel it. It's calling and it's getting louder. And he looked at me and he's like, there you go again. And he's like, that's that you have everything. And he's like, and plus, like, you've helped thousands of people. I don't understand why we're having this conversation. And it's the first time where I raised my voice in the room and I was like, it's not my legacy. It's not. And everyone just stared at me. It was like in the room, like Paul was there. Everyone just looked at me because I had never been like, it's not my legacy. It was really like that. And everyone was like, what is going on with her? But vocalizing it was like, it's not my legacy. First of all, I don't want I didn't like, as much as I liked the people who worked under my home, I didn't like having that responsibility of managing a household, like with help and tutors. And I was like, this is not what I imagined. I didn't imagine a big place. Like, it's so much work. I think people don't realize that when you have all that stuff, it's actually a lot of work. And I was like, I don't like it actually. I don't like managing all the people that you have to hire to manage it. I don't like it. And I don't like that I work so much that I have to have all this support to, even like with my kids. And then in work, I was managing large teams. I had just fundraised $100 million, which is a lot in the humanitarian world, managing all these things. And I was like, it's such a high level of responsibility, but yet I
Mm.
felt that the impact I was making was very inside one institution. Even though it was at a country macro level, it still didn't feel like, it didn't feel mine. And there was things that like I couldn't have full freedom of it. And even though like we're making change, it wasn't what I had envisioned. Sometimes I tell people like it's not that even it may look great on the outside, but it has to feel great for you in the inside. So even when you're making a difference, it has to feel in alignment. And that's why for me, I was like, this is not for me. And so I decided, well, I'm heartfelt. So I was like, I don't want to leave anyone hanging. So I gave a transition time to everyone, my team. I was like, this is going to happen 6 months from now. Like, my house, everyone that worked in my household, look, in 6 months, this is what's going to happen. So everyone transition. I even paid for my driver's college. I'm like, here you go. So you can set yourself up, like everyone's like, because that was part of me. It's like not leaving people with a burden or disrupting their life. But then I decided that's not for me. So what do I want? And that was really hard because it's really easy to be like, oh, not alignment. But what is my limitless life for me? What is my dream?
Do you think that's the first step, though? Is a lot of people are like, oh, what do I want? But, for me, I actually think, through the journey that I've been on, it's actually working out what don't I want?
Exactly.
And then I actually think
Yep.
that's the first step.
You're right. You're right. I hadn't even thought about that, right? I guess the first step was going, this is not my legacy. Yeah. And then going, okay, so I'm gonna blow up my life. And now what? you know? I was like, because I literally blew up my life. And we had to make a decision. But I mean, it was also I think also at that time too. Paul has two older kids and they had already gone into college. And I felt like actually now it felt more I could blow up our lives with our two kids, and that wasn't going to ripple affect it. Even though it was ripple affecting the people that worked under me, I was like, okay, I can blow up my life now. I still have no plan what I'm going to do, but I'm going to blow up my life. And and then I started to think about, yeah, exactly, what don't I want? So that's a good frame because then I started to be like, I don't want to live in a 6-bedroom house. I don't want to have to live in anywhere bigger that I can't manage myself, or like have someone like a company come in, twice a week. But anything that's more than that, I don't want. So what does that mean? Okay, I want to live in an apartment. I want to live in the city. And then I was like, oh, you know what? I want to be walkable. So I was like, okay, I want somewhere to walk. I said, I want view. I want to look at like the ocean. I want to be able to travel. I want my own time. I don't want to commute. Right. So I started going through. And so at first was like blow up our lives to the lifestyle first we wanted, which was which was minimalist. And then with the minimalist lifestyle, I realized how much I loved it because now it was like, now I could put my money and my investments to build what I wanted. And I was like, what do I really want? Is like, I want freedom of action, freedom of choice, of help lots of people. And how do I help them? So I had to do basically everything I had been helping everyone else my whole life of making their aspirations a reality. Do that same program with myself, which is the hardest thing, is to help yourself, right? Because everyone else, we can give advice to everyone else, we can coach everyone else, but ourselves, it's the hardest. Because then, it's a lot of like second guessing. Is that really my value? Is that really my value? Is that really how I help people? I don't know. And so I started just asking people, how have I helped you and when? And getting data from people in my life. And I started to realize how I help people. And I was like, oh, I really like that. How can I continue doing that? How do I make it outside of the world and space I've been to? And then also by doing that, I realized I've always been that person since I was 7. So the job never defined me. I brought these gifts to that place, but I can continue bringing those gifts to everywhere. And then I was like, ooh, how do I continue? Where do I want to? Now, the next question, where do I want to bring these gifts to? And who needs it now? And that helped create like that path of what my life wanted to be, which was basically giving my problem solving, helping people every day in the way that was in alignment with me, that was impactful, that changed it, and also being around positivity. And that may seem simple, but it isn't, because we live in societies of competition, right? We live in societies of like
Comparison.
gossip, yeah, comparison. And I put the challenge of, I want to create a platform on social media that has none of that. And people were like, that's impossible. And I'm like, I'm going to create a feed for myself that's going to be only positive accounts. I am only going to post positive things. And the people who follow me are going to be that, or I will block them and I will create, like, I should be able to create a community that way and take out all the negativity in my life. Because that was another thing too that I felt the American dream brought, was a lot of never feeling it was enough, always feeling I didn't have enough money or a big enough house, or I wasn't status enough, or at the highest position. It always felt like a never ending
But
chase.
that's the strategy.
Yeah. So then
That's
I
the strategy
never.
because it keeps people working. It keeps people, you
Exactly.
know, thinking
And
forward, needing
and
to
you
work more. I don't have
exactly.
enough.
Or
I'm
I'm
never
not
going to be
enough.
enough.
Exactly.
Yep.
And that I was like, I need that out, because actually it was affecting my mental health. Because even when it was appeared I had everything, I never felt like I did. And I was like, you know what? All that out. All that out. I can't have any of that noise around me. And I'm actually going to create a new noise, because we need to be as loud as that. Right. And I was like, I'm going to start showing people that actually I left all of that. And guess what? I'm creating the space and the life I want. So I want to travel with my kids all summer. I want to be able to create all those things I wanted. And it is what it is. No. So I will tell you, the first year was the hardest. I did not have support. You know what I mean? Like, from the social media side, to people being like, oh, you're like, because I was talking about, like, we have to let go of perfectionism. I stopped to work. I used to be super polished, or I'm like, no, I'm gonna wear all my. I had already kind of started that move, little by little. But I was like, I'm gonna wear bracelets, I'm gonna wear this, and I'm gonna be who I am. And at first, I rubbed people the wrong way a little bit, because they were like, I don't. You're trying to challenge the way I live in my identity. But
Mm.
then, little by little, I was like, look, you can. I will welcome you back in the space when you're ready. So my whole thing was have empathy for you. I understand. I was there. So when you're ready, I'm here. So I'm not going to force anything on anyone. Just when you're ready, I'm here. So I noticed some of those people kept lurking around, and years later they came around going, can you help me? I want that. And this and that, right? So it's having that empathy open, that even your naysayer can turn into someone that comes around, and they need to go on the journey with you. And sometimes they're still stuck, and they need to figure it out. So I had empathy for them. But that was the big turning point. But that first year was hard to
And
let that go.
And
Yeah.
that first year, Esther, like I
Yeah.
always say, whenever you switch, so I was in real estate for many years,
Oh,
and it took me a few years, like I hit burnout, it took me a few years to actually fully extract myself,
oh,
lose the ego, lose the identity,
yep,
because I identified myself as a successful real estate agent, as a principal, as a boss, all these
yep,
different titles, and I was like, oh, I've got to hold that, and people need me. It was the ego
yeah,
holding on to that, and when I let go of that, it was just like this weight disappeared off my shoulders. But it's interesting
yeah,
because, and I'd love to ask you this as well, but every time someone, and there'll be people listening to this episode that will go, oh, I want to make a change. I want to, like, I'm at a crossroads. I'm going to, do I
mm-hmm.
go left? Do I go right? Do I go backwards? Do I go forwards? Wherever I go, right? And what's going to happen is the universe is always going to put tests in your way to go, we'll come back, and it'll try and entice
Oh,
you.
yeah.
But it tests your resolve. So I'd love to know, in
Oh,
that first
whew.
12 months,
Yes.
what were some of those things that kind of tested you in the universe, and you were like, no, I'm still going forward.
Yeah. I'm actually going to give an example from this year,
Yep.
because I was tested that year. And exactly what you're saying. It took me a year to purge that, all of it, right? Like, it takes a while to purge that whole identity, and people also need to get used to you in a new place. And that's why I'm saying having empathy for folks, because they've known you a whole certain way. They think they knew you.
Mm.
And I think them understanding, even it took my family a year to adjust, where I was like, actually, no, I don't want to do it. And they didn't understand. They kept on trying to push me back, going, then why'd you get a PhD if you're going to be doing something that everyone else does? Do you know what I mean? Like, why did you do that then? And I'm like, actually, my PhD is very valuable in this thing, because it's a lot. I know how to problem solve. I don't see it that way, right? But they were like, I don't understand. You should be. So they didn't understand. First year was the isolation, which tested me. It was not having support from people, when everyone, every time I had done a milestone, had cheered, was like there for the accolade. But at the same time, I had to remember that they weren't there with me in the journey. right? It was like, that's why it was the rush to reach every accolade, because that's when you're celebrated. And so now
Mm.
that I didn't have the accolades, I wasn't being celebrated. And so the test is like, oh my God, I need to get another accolade, right? Or I don't have the support, and you feel isolated, and you start questioning, was this the right move? And so I think the isolation, the lack of support was really, really tough. But I will say, this is why I have a soft spot to Australia, because I didn't have anyone around me in my geographic circle or in my work circle and my friend circle that understood, because I was trailblazing. When you are a trailblazer, that means that you're paving a new path in your circle. No one is
Mm.
going to hold your hand, because you're paving the path that no one wants to go down, right? That's scared to go through the scary woods. No one's going to follow you. So it's going to be lonely at first. And I had to remember that. And so that isolation was tough. But Australia. So Australia, I decided, well, you know what? I need a community though. I can't do this by myself. So I went online, and I said, I was reading different books, and I found this author that she's from Australia. And I was like, oh my God, you know what? Let me see what community she has. And I found a community of women in Australia that were doing like amazing positive things. And they became my community across the world, and my virtual community. And it was so great because
Who's the
it wasn't
author?
Erica Kramer.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, yeah. So she had like a book about like confidence feels like shit, and but what I liked about her was, and she has a new one like magneticism. But what I liked about it, and she doesn't have this community anymore. She had it back then, before when she was growing. But what I liked about this community was it was everyone with a dream, and she had. What I liked about her was that she had bootstrapped from the bottom up. Like she really believed in this dream of helping women. And even though our approaches are so different, I was like, wow, she took her dream and made it to something. And I want to be around women that have big dreams. I want to make it into something, and then have made it into something. So that community was all positive, all women that were had these dreams, had these things, legacies they wanted to build, and everyone supporting each other. And I was like, that's it. This was my community for now. So I had to find digitally, or, through digital tools, a positive space during that time that was away from a geographic space, while everyone else around me caught up, which took a year and more for them to come around. And so that was the biggest test for me, was the isolation, because I'm very community focused, and I'm very into serving my people. So when I had switched, that everyone was kind of like, oh, Esther's going rogue, that was really, really tough and isolating. But this community helped me keep it going. She helped give me that motivation, and then I started to see that things were building. And at the end, she was like, people, you can't worry about what people think or feel, right? So very instrumental for me in that beginning stage. Yeah, it's sad she doesn't have anymore, because it was really helpful, right? But I know everyone graduates from their stuff. And for because I think about other entrepreneurs that are starting, I'm like, that was great, but it doesn't exist anymore. But
Mm.
that
Yep.
really helped me. But I always say there's communities everywhere. I do encourage folks that whatever you need, it exists out there, and so you got to find it, even if it's across the world. Now with technology, you can find community of people that can help you. You can join
Yeah.
different initiatives. So I'll take you back to this year. So then, during then I built this community, and I started finding other communities, and then I started my people then started coming around over the stages. But I was really tested this year, and this has been already like years into the social enterprise. Um, it has been going. We had been having amazing growth, right? Whole thing. Last year, we had spent 6 months, getting all the different contracts with these amazing, institutions. We were really excited. Like we were helping in the humanitarian space and universities, and I was like, I tell people, I was everything I had lined up. So this is what's different than before. Everything I had lined up, I wanted. I had sought and I wanted, and it was supposed to be my year of rest, because I had spent the 6 months lining up this year. Okay, so this January comes this year, that week, the week of the new administration in the United States. And within 3 days, I lost all my contracts, all of them. So we're talking $400,000 worth of them. Okay. And I hit rock bottom. So this is, I think, the real test, even though the other test was about pushing through, like getting through that year. My real test was this year, because when I lost it all, I was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Because it wasn't just me, we've grown. I have, like, there's people, and I'm like, what is this me? And then everyone around me, the noise, was like, you're not going to recover from this, because your whole brand is about inclusivity, positivity, diversity, right? Following your dreams, helping the underdog, environmental, like everything that's about saving the world is my brand, right? So they're like, you're going to be like, of course, like in every single, even though I had thought I diversified, everything was taken, because that's the essence of my brand. So people were like, you're not going to survive. You got to go find a job. So all of the noise around me was, you need to go back to follow that American dream. You see, even though it's been several years, that was not realistic that it was going to sustain. Okay. So every noise, plus the world imploding and exploding. So there's all this grief and scarcity mindset, right? So when you think about that negative noise, it was like supercharged. And I had no plan. Like I never in my wildest, I don't know, scenario planning did I think that would happen. And it's never happened in history that would even potentially happen. And I had signed. The worst part is I had signed contracts, but they could completely void them, because what happened? So I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? So I hit rock bottom. Couldn't even get out of bed, and I started to think, like, maybe I need to go back to a job. And I actually applied to jobs. Okay, I actually applied to jobs. I had job offers, and I still have a coach. I always say, it doesn't matter how far you are, you still have coaches. So I have a coach, a human design coach, and I was reading with her, and I was really down, and I was like, my intuition. I'm like, what do I was trying to tap into my intuition, like cancel the noise, and I was really struggling. I even hosted breath work for my community, because I host breath work, but I was really having a hard time, because I was holding so much. And then plus on top of that, everyone around me was going through grief. So they were like, help me, help me, help me, help me. And before, I was helping everyone because we had the social enterprise we were generating. So we had a large part of our money and services that we would give pro bono. And at this point, I'm like, I have nothing to give, right? Other than a joint breathwork session, I'll do that. But I really have nothing to give. And I was struggling, but with the human design coach, she told me, do you really want that job? Like, really, honestly. And I really thought about, when you really like talk to your gut. And I was like, I don't. I'm like, I really want this to work. I really want this to work, because this is my legacy. This is not like before, where I'm making a choice of whether to leave. This is something I loved everything I was doing, but I just can't think about how to rebuild. Like, I don't know. And she's like, but do you want this job? I'm like, no. Then she's like, then rebuild. Like, you're focusing too much on the how. Just rebuild. And I was like, okay, think about how you can serve. And so I stopped, and then I was like, yeah, you're right. Just, I need to go back to, I am of service. I am of service. And it was such a test. And then she was like, are you really putting 1,000% effort to rebuild and to be of service? And I was like, you know what? I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. So I had to be honest with myself. Like, I was going down the rabbit hole. I was going to go back to safety, of going back to the safety thing, which was like, I'm going to get a job, and actually was a high paying job, and I'm going to travel 75% time for someone else, whole thing. And I was like, you're right. I haven't. So then I sat down, and Paul and I like sent 1,500 emails. And then I realized, you know what? I want to be on the right side of history. I know exactly what I need to do. I can help all those people transition out, because the agency was shutting down. I was like, I can help all those people transition, because I did that. Something so, and then I was like, I'm just going to send tons of emails out that if you need help transitioning, I can help you, and I can go give workshops so that it's a lower cost. And I was just be a service. And then I sent all those emails out, and then we spent from May till September traveling all around the world, giving workshops and coaching and helping these people reland their jobs and build their ventures and have light again, because they felt how I felt in February.
That's a key point in life, right? Every time there's a roadblock or a challenge or a
Yeah,
problem, there's always an opportunity. So if there's a
exactly.
problem, like if there's a problem, well then how do you solve that for people, right?
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
and it's interesting because like as you said, you came in as an immigrant, and you were like, okay, I've got the opportunity here, and this is life, and I've just got to make the absolute most of it, right?
Mhm.
And it's interesting when you hit that challenge, earlier this year, it was like, oh, it was society pulling you back in line to go, Esther, you've just got to get a job, and you've just got to, fall back in line, right?
Yep.
And this is the thing, I know there'd be people listening to this going, far out. This is me.
Yep.
I've had points like this, and I just keep getting pulled in. And the spaces and environments that I'm hanging around, and the people I'm hanging around these days, are people that, just like you, Esther, just like Paul, just like many around the world, are going, no, 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 no. We're bucking the trend. Like we are not. We want something better. We want to serve better. And it's interesting with that. And I'd really love to ask you this, Esther, is one of the things, when you live a life of service, is it's this kind of ambition versus purpose that you're always balancing, right? So the
Hmm.
ambition is a lot of the time people saying, oh, this is how many followers you have to have, or this is how many likes
Yes.
that you should be getting,
Hmm.
or the amount of views on YouTube you're getting, right? So you get all this external noise of people telling
Hmm.
you what you should look like, what you should do, right? When I started this podcast back in 2023, I had people messaging me saying, "Oh, you've got to do in person. If you don't do in person, like it's what's the point in doing it?" And I said, "Well, I want to interview people around the world, and in person isn't very economical." And then I've had so many people message me and go, "Oh yeah, this is great. That's great." I've had people message me, and I just love it. People will go, "Oh, we're interested in coming on your podcast." Okay, cool. Yeah. Can you send us your stats? I just want to know how many followers, how many listens, and everything like that, right? And then there was moments where I sat there and went, I didn't feel good enough, right? Now, my
Yep.
whole thing from when I first started this was I don't really care about followers. I don't really care about views, subscribers, all those kind of things, right? For me, it was just there is one person sitting there, whether it's in their car, whether it's on their couch, whether it's wherever they
Hmm.
are right now, listening to an episode. And if I can share just one different perspective or one thing that actually helps them move forward. Because I think for us as human beings, if we're moving forward, we feel better. If we feel
Yep.
stuck, so I think anyone listening to this, and I'm sure you'd have the exact same kind of advice, is that if you're feeling stuck right now, what's one thing that you can do today to make you feel like you're moving forward?
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. And sometimes it's like that's the thing that I did in February. I was like, I'm gonna book a session with my human design coach because I don't know what I'm gonna ask her in the session, but I feel stuck right now. And so
Yeah,
the coaching session is gonna help me get unstuck and ask me the questions I need to ask myself. And it helped me.
yeah,
And I think it's sometimes as simple as that. You may not even have the answer to that, but who can you call? Where can you go? What can you do? Right? Some maybe it's to go exercise, and that's gonna and ask yourself a question. Maybe read a book that's gonna give you an answer. Like it could be that simple, but you're doing something proactive to get yourself right out of that situation and to get the answers you need to get to move forward, right? And not just staying in it and poor me victim wallow, right? You're like, no, I'm going to find answers, and I'm going to pull through. And and I agree with you on the stats. It's hard, right? That ambition thing. I found that with my book too, because in my book there was all this pool to pay for, and the thing is you start to realize that a lot of things you can't pay for. They're like pay for a certain status, right? Like of you can pay for the Wall Street Journal top whatever, right? and all those things, right? People can pay for New York Times bestseller. There's a lot of things you can pay for. And at the same time, it's what you said. It's like, are you being of service? Why are you doing it? And I ask, I even, because I coach authors too, like, you need to have a bigger why in the book, because if not, that's going to come out. And for me, my book was always about, like, hey, I can't coach everyone one by one. People are in that same position like I am, about like chasing. I have chasing the American dream crossed out. I want to know, how do I discover my purpose? They want to know what I share there, that actually they're not crazy for thinking about purpose, that they're not, that it is actually worldwide. Here's like my story and the data that I show, that it's normal to feel like that. The everything you're feeling is absolutely normal. You can create what you want. This is the plan. You can create it where you can still have safety and have the life that you want to live, right? Because that's always what they're playing against. And actually, you can create your own safety. People always ask me, well, why didn't you have a ARC, like advanced reader thing, or why you don't have like hundreds and hundreds and thousands of reviews, and you're not pinging people? I didn't want to do any of that, because for me, the best is when people reach out to me one by one and said that my book changed their life. Even like last week, Paul was on a call with someone coaching, and he's like, oh, we have this book, and showing it to them, and she's like, get out, that's your book? And he's like, yeah, like, with the book. And she's like, I was just on a call earlier today where this woman shared that book and said that's what made her move to Rwanda. I don't know who that woman is, but it's amazing. I was like, Paul, that made my day, because that's the whole point, right? That person's never going to write a review for me on Amazon, right? And a lot of the books, I like, we have the social thing, all the money I make from the books, we donate books, right? And it's not going to count towards my numbers, right? If, for my next book, it's not. There's thousands of books that are not going to be in my stats. But what I can say with confidence, that when I pass away, I was actually just talking to Paul about that this morning. With confidence, I know who it's impacted. I know some of them, and I'm sure there's other ones I don't know. I know whose life is changed, the people who shared it with me. From this year alone, I still have not posted. I've only made one LinkedIn post about the coaching we did this year, because we did 1,200 hours and 400 of them we gave pro bono. And people email me one by one, even 2 days ago. I landed the job you helped me with. I have the job. I have the job. I have this, right? I'm not sharing all that online, even though marketing tells you to, right? I still haven't been able. I'm still processing the year, right? So I shared that I did the coaching as a thank you, gratitude, but I haven't shared all the other things. But at the same time, like, I know what it did, and I know I sat on the right type of history, and that's like a legacy. But that is mine, right? And I feel good about it, and I feel like, actually, it was weird, that test this year actually helped me even go more in alignment. So sometimes these tests put you on the path you're meant to, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like,
Yeah.
yeah, that all disappeared, but what came to me this year instead was so beautiful
It
and
was a detour.
remarkable. Yeah, but it was
It was a
amazing.
detour. Yeah,
But it was amazing.
and it teaches us as well, when we have these detours, is that the view that we thought we were going to get changes, because the route takes a
Yeah.
different kind of direction. And then a lot of the time, it's actually like it's a better
Yeah.
view,
It's a better
and
view.
it's a
Like,
better experience.
it was. Actually, I ended up having more impact than I had planned.
Yeah.
It was because at the end, it's about the impact. And I'm so, like, grateful. Like, I don't know, I'm grateful. And I think also it taught me that I can, like, even hitting rock bottom, I had all the tools as resilience to bounce back,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh, it doesn't. Now I even feel less scared of safety, than I
Yeah.
did before. Now I'm like, you know what? Anything that blocks me, I know how to. I can serve. I can help people. I can step up. But
Yeah.
that chase between the ambition, it's really hard. And sometimes, like, I remember I hated at first I'm an entrepreneur word. And that's why, I was like, well, what makes me feel good is being a social entrepreneur. But I think it's because of that, because there's all these metrics, and that reminds me of the American dream, and I'm like, ugh. But it's tough. It's tough, and like, you
And
see the grants are all about that too, and yeah.
yeah. And changing my brand, it came to me in meditation earlier this year, just as it came to me on a men's retreat to actually start a podcast. But it was interesting, sitting down with my marketing team, and they were like, I'm going to do the rebrand. This is how we're going to have to launch it. And I said, no, I don't want to launch it that way. I said, what I
Exactly.
want is the content. I want the content and the guests to market it, right? And it was interesting. They're like, what's the noise of life? Like, it doesn't mean anything to me, right? Like, and obviously, they're a bit of a younger team. And it was interesting. I went, well, it means a lot to me. And for the people that I'm talking to and the people that I want to speak to, the
Yeah, they
noise of
resonate.
life
Yeah.
means so much. And it's interesting the amount of, like, a few episodes in,
Yep.
the amount of people that are really resonating and messaging me, and even my guests, when I ask them noise of life, they're like, oh, I just love noise of life, because the noise of life it
Yeah.
resonates with people, right? When
Yeah.
you say
Yeah.
noise of life. But what I worked out is that so many people that are younger, that haven't had a lot of noises in life, kids, separations, breakups, all those kind of things, very early on, that they don't understand the noise of life until they've gone through some of these things: redundancy, job loss, the
Yeah.
loss of loved
Yeah.
ones, all
Grief.
these
Yeah.
different things. And as that builds up, then you work out, wow, life is
Mm-hmm.
noisy, right?
Exactly.
And there's so many layers to noise and so many parts
Mm-hmm.
to noise.
Yep.
Esther, I wanted to ask you, and let's kind of get into the nuts and bolts of those that are listening to this episode and they're kind of stuck, or they're not kind of on the path that they want to be. They've maybe dipped their toe into a few things here and there, or they've just looked at the detour and just wondered whether it's right for them. What's a framework that they can use? Talk them through what are the steps they need to go through to move forward.
Yeah. Well, that's a tough one. There's a lot of steps, right? So I mean, the framework that I use, I call it the power framework, because like even the work this year was about reminding people that we all have power, and the power and light exists within us. And so how I define power is like P is your purpose, but then even purpose is super loaded. So purpose I have broken down a lot of pieces. So I can tell people more, like a couple questions they can ask themselves in terms of like, what's my purpose? One is
Perfect.
like I have like, okay, legacy. Like I say, purpose is never changes, but your legacy changes. So the legacy is constantly changing, right? Like especially as like as you start thinking about the impact you want to make and how you want to make it, or it changes and through time and your lifetime and how long you live, all of that, right? So think about like your living obituary changes, your legacy. So one thing to find out about that, but even that, I tell people it's not about metrics, right? So if you had your obituary, I have people write it. This is a good exercise for listeners. Write as if you passed away tomorrow. What does your obituary say? What are people talking about? If you're like a mosquito in the room, what is the messages you're hearing? And then
Oh,
rewrite
that's
it.
that's heavy. That's heavy. That
Yeah.
makes me feel heavy.
Yeah. But then
Mm.
when you and it feels confusing. But when you actually sit down and read it, it's going to tell you where you're going to feel uncomfortable. Where's the gap? And that gap, when you rewrite it, is what that's the impact you want to leave that you haven't left yet. So like when I did that exercise of like leaving my job, my obituary was like, okay, I had helped, this community, thousands of people, whatever. But what I really wanted to do was something more global and so much more positive and like mental health related, individual, like just so much, because I really noticed that the things I was seeing even in communities, I was like, it's because they're not clear on how they contribute and their value add, and they're competing against one another. And that's really the big things I want to like fight against, and things like that, right? But so I kind of knew what the gap was, that I did not I it just wasn't alignment, right? Even though it reads good, I didn't like what it was being said. But I did notice right away, when I tell you, when you do that exercise, it's not about metrics. No one's talking there how much money you're making, what car you drove, what house you lived in, what your job title was. Nothing. They're talking about how you changed their life, how you made them feel good, what joy you brought, what love you brought, what impact you brought. That's how you felt, the emotion you gave. And so then that tells you those are tweaks, right? Of like if you're stuck, those are little tweaks you can make in your life to realize, wait, I'm defined by what I bring to a room, to a space. In my life, I've already been doing it. So now it's like the opportunity, where do I want to keep doing that with? So that's one thing, do that exercise. And then think about if you're stuck on like, I don't know that future, what it could look like. I could tell people like with through a breath work, you can sit down and say, in 10 years, and 20 years, and 15 years, what's your ideal day look like? What are you doing? Who are you with? What are you seeing? Who are you having like coffee with? What does your day look like? Who are you impacting? Who are you helping? And that for me, I knew right there. One, I was not in a job. I was going from my home to like video things, talking to people from different places of the world. Like different days, I was like traveling. I was like, it was a very multi-passionate future. You know what I mean? Like multi-dimensional. I was not in one place at any given time. And I was like, okay, that tells me right there, I'm not meant to be in a 9 to 5. That's not my ideal day. And my ideal day was also being with Paul all day. And I'm like, that's not happening right now. And it did not show me retired. It showed me helping and serving people. So that told me that I wanted to be talking and serving people and doing things, giving impact globally. So that starts to tell you, what does my day look like? What am I doing? Right? How is it different from today? And then you can start bringing out, oh, how do I create that? Okay, another thing is, who am I outside of this job? And that's the other part of the purpose question is, okay, so I have this thing where I tell everybody, we could do it even here. Like if you had $40 billion, what global problem would you solve? What would you solve? I'll do it
What
with
would
you.
I solve? 40 billion. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what global problem? Like,
Just pick
I
one.
like probably, like clean drinking water and food, right?
Okay. So now the G7, right, all the presidents around the world, right? They're of the developed world. They're going to tell you, they're going to give you this money, but you need to tell them quickly in 3 to 5 steps, how are you going to use this money to solve this problem?
Yeah,
What are you
wow.
going to do first? What are you going to do first? Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the first thing is you've got to work out where the real problem is. Where does the problem
Okay.
actually exist? And is it supply lines? It's great to send food and clean drinking water into different areas, but is it actually going to get there? Because
Okay.
a lot
And
of
then
money around the world is
mm-hmm.
wasted, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's so much humanitarian aid that goes
Yep.
overseas. I know even from Australia, I don't think it actually gets to where it needs to go in many cases.
Mm-hmm. So you're trying to figure out like where those roadblocks, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then what's the next one? Then what did you do once you learned where the roadblocks are? Mm-hmm.
Once the roadblocks are, it's creating a team that can actually make it happen,
Okay. And then?
and then making sure there's metrics around like that it's actually impacting real lives.
Okay, cool. So not any person answers the global problem. People choose a lot of the same issues, okay?
Yep.
But the how you solve it, it's unique to you. And the order is unique to you and how you solve it. So I give people this question, and this is how I actually help people with resumes too. Executive resumes are formed on how you solve problems. I believe everyone deserves an executive resume. So that's my belief, right? All of us bring power. So this tells you how you solve problems. So for example, like you could pick any problem. If we chose, then we changed it. Like in the coaching session, we would do like 4 of these. Like a kid had a financial
How would you
problem.
answer it, Esther? How would you answer it?
Ah, yeah. And so how I answer is how I introduce myself. So I tell people my superpower is I help people unpack their mission, vision, and purpose, like their mission, vision, and purpose. That's the first step for me. So like if I was solving anything, climate change, depression, I need to understand first okay, we have this problem, but what does success look like for us? What does solving this problem mean for us? And
Mm.
that's my first step, is like, we need to all be on the same page
Hmm.
on, if we have climate change, what does it mean? Are we trying to go back to what it used to be 10 years ago? Are we trying to go forward and make it more? Or, so we need to get clear on what's the mission and vision. And then we make the plan to make it happen with contingencies. And then we need resilience, because anything can set us back again.
Mm.
And so, but that's what I do for everything. So with
Yeah.
everything, I tell people, when I introduce myself, I'm like, people say Esther, I'm like, I'm Esther. My superpower is I help you unpack your mission, vision, and purpose. I help you make it happen and keep it going. And that's for
Yeah.
every problem I solve. So, but sometimes people seek you out only for one part of it. So my whole life, people only sought me out for the planning. Make
Mm.
things happen to me. Remember, I'm the fixer. Make things happen for me. And I'm always was left with, I need to know like, what I don't want to just work on fixing your Netflix or your thing, right? Like, I want to work on helping big things. This is what I'm talking about, the misalignment. I want to help people make the reality, not fix anything. So, like in your case, I love what you said, because you noticed in this podcast, your first one was Roblox. And the whole podcast, you've been telling people of helping people get unstuck. So think
Mm.
about that. That's your first lens, is helping people get unstuck, which was the
Yep.
first answer to the question of like the roadblocks. I need to know where your roadblock is. Where are you think about, as an individual, where are you getting stuck?
Yep.
And then I'm going to get you a team. And this is, I'm going to get you guests. I'm going to get you around a lot of people to help you get unstuck. And
Yep.
then and then your third one, right? And so your third one was, I can't remember now. Make it happen? No. You had the team, and
Yeah.
then,
How to? Yeah. So it's getting the team, and then
yeah, and the
you
tools and
know.
the resources to make it happen, right? So think
Yep.
about that. That's what your podcast does. I'm sure if you, when every time you think about helping people, that's your power. You help people identify their roadblocks and get them unstuck, so that it actually, they can go, and the things
Yeah.
can go through, right? That's our power. So people to understand, like, okay, I don't know what value I give outside of this one job. Like, or like, I feel like I can't add value to anywhere else. Ask yourself that question, and then test it yourself. Ask people. I'll even encourage you to do it. Ask people, through all the guests you've had, all your friends, ask them, how have I helped you? And I'm sure everyone's going to tell you help them uncover their roadblock, help them get unstuck, help them go, right? People always tell me, you helped me figure out my vision, like my 20-year plan, my 10-year plan, right? I get that a lot. Like, you helped me think about the future, like that, and made it possible, right? So those are our powers. And then when you realize that, you realize, oh my God, I've always been helping people since I was a kid doing that. I'm sure you help people since you were a kid, helped them think about, like, get out of situations, even little
Mm.
ones, like even driving. You're probably like, I know how to get us out of this, right? Like anything. So we've been
Yep.
doing that forever. And so that questions a lot in that purpose question, because it's tied how you solve problems, what you can teach the world, right? What have you overcome, and how? What you love, right? Your legacy, it's all tied to that purpose. And then the O is like organizational flow. How can I make this happen that's flows with me? And then work life integration. Like, if you're not good at work, you're not going to be good at home. If you're not good at home, you're not going to be good at work. So
Yep.
where am I in balance, right? And then enjoyment. You have to enjoy the journey. Like, that's why I have this thing, like, you have to celebrate living your values every day. And 8 out of 10 people don't really know their values. There's like free tests online, but I'm like, you got to know what you value, because that's your alignment. Like, it took
Mm.
me a long time to realize that my number one alignment, my number one value, is meaningful work. Second one is
Yep.
contribution. So the minute I stop feeling things are meaningful, it's not alignment. I need to do something else. Or if a client is not, like, I don't feel that they are in it for meaningful work, it's not for me. Right. And
Mm.
even that tells me, like, okay, I need to enjoy what I'm doing and who I'm working with. And so sometimes, like, a lot of that stuckness is also like that place is not in alignment with your values and who you are. And then resilience is the R one for me. It's like you like how is resilience is not just it's bouncing back, but it's like what tools when you overcame things and hit rock bottom, what was those tools you used? How can you use them now? And your everyday so you don't hit rock bottom. Right? What
Yeah.
like for me it's like celebrating every day. I have a little calendar. I read my testimonials every morning that are sent to me personally, just to remind myself, oh, this is my legacy, this is my impact, this is why I'm here. I wake up and I have to read them. So, but everyone is different. That's why I don't have like cookie cutter resilience strategies. You have strategies you've used your life on how you go. So that's the power. Those are tactical little practical tools that people can use and ask themselves that will help you
That's
get one step
Yeah,
closer.
that's brilliant. And I talk about when I'm working with people or organizations, I talk about, it's really about awareness. Like, um, when you start shifting in life, and a lot of the time, if it's a redundancy or if it's a health challenge or anything like that, you have to become more aware around yourself, right? You've got to look in the mirror, stop blaming outside factors, look internally, not
Exactly.
externally. Once you do that, you start then, like you mentioned values there. And it's interesting. I was working with a lady a little while ago and she's like, okay, I said, what do you want in life? And she's like, well, I want to spend more time with my family, and I want to do something that I love and everything like that. I'm like, okay, cool, yeah. So time with your family, time with people you love, more things that you're doing that you love and enjoy, and then I was like, okay, so how does that speak to you right now? Like, how does your life align with that? And she's like, well, I work a lot, I this, I that. So basically, she had competing values. So she had
Yeah.
her deep values that were inside her, but she
Mm-hmm.
also had the expectations probably on what
Exactly.
she should be doing and what path she should be, kind of walking. So she was like, oh, I'm doing all these things, but all these things that she wanted to achieve and what her goals didn't actually align with what she actually wanted in life.
Exactly. And even like the values, they have a theory of change. And sometimes it's knowing how they feed into each other, right? Like, because I work with some folks where they have meaningful work, or they have something like I want to think of another one like health or inner harmony, but they also have like financial stability or something else. But it's showing them that the financial stability is like lower in the tandem pool, and that the money is actually the driver for them to have.
Yeah.
It's like just a tool to give them well-being, but the goal is not the goal. And I think it's for them realizing that the financial stability part is the safety that they need to feel well, but it's not the wellness is the top thing that they want, right? That health, that thing. And so I think even them separating in there that pool to have financial stability, that's one of their values, is actually just to have the driver. But really what it is the wellness that they want. And that's what they need to prioritize and those things. But it's hard until you see it all, right? Laid out for you.
Yeah.
That you're like, oh, actually that's true. My top thing is the other thing, but I thought it was the other thing, and they're competing. And sometimes some of the other things are trauma responses. Like for me, it was surprising when I did the values. Because one, I mean, the meaningful work wasn't surprising, but I had some other ones that I thought I was gonna have safety as a value. And it didn't come up in my values. And I was like, huh, I really thought that was my thing because I chased it for so long. But I realized that was a value imposed on, like, that was because of my circumstances, because even my motivation, I had 0% safety. I had 75% of my motivation was self actualization. So when I hit rock bottom, I need to dream big. And then when I dream big, again, that's why I help people with vision, right? When I dream big, then I like grow and this, and then that's when I create my safety. But safety is not a motivator for me. And I was like, oh, safety is a trauma response. And so even making that awareness, I was like, wow, okay, that's great. So when I know that when that clicks to me, like it did to me earlier this year, I have to remind myself that's trauma. That's not really my motivator. That's not what's going to get me out of this. I need to dream big, not leash onto safety. So those, I'm so glad you do it with your clients because it's such like an awareness thing that then like
Mm.
clicks, right? And then you're like, oh, this is who I am. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the higher awareness that you have for yourself actually gives you a higher awareness of others.
Yes. Yes. Oh, 1,000%. And that's why the work is so important. And that's why we you always have some inner growth you're doing, whether it's a book or a coach or whatever. You never stop learning and learning about yourself. Then you become better. I and I want to add to that. That's what happened to me in the humanitarian international development space. Is that I realized, because people are like, well, how did you go from climate change scientist to then humanitarian aid, then to what I do now? And I'm like, I gave the same power in all those spaces. But honestly, it was because I know that I will move the needle more in this space, because I realized that when people are more aware of each other, of themselves, they're less likely to compete, because then they realize everyone has power. They know that everyone brings something. They're more willing to shine other people's light. They're more willing to come together and make more collective change, because they don't live in scarcity mindset. So I realized that the way to change the world was not me going to work on these projects. The way to change the world was to get people out of scarcity mindset, step into their power, because when they step into their power, then they can go and change the world and be more willing and able and understand how they can and what they contribute and come together for collective power and change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And live an abundant life.
Yes, absolutely. But the abundance comes with that, switching from scarcity to abundance mindset, because then you realize your abundance is within.
Yeah. Esther, looking back at your life, and looking at your obviously life now, what's one noise you've had to live with, and what's one that you've let go of?
Yeah. The Oh, this is a heavy one, I think. I think the noise that I think this year, it's not until this year that I'm over. I think I'm on a journey. Okay. I think the noise that I'm living with is that my value isn't in, how do you say this? Like, I think the thing I struggle with is, okay, so I also really into an enneagrams, right? And one of my biggest fears is not being of value. And so I would say that's something that I'm always going to feel and have.
Hmm.
Okay. Like the fear of not being valued, which then makes me overgiver, people pleaser. And it makes it really hard for me to say no. So that's why I help people with boundaries and like scripts and how to do that, right? Because it's something I'm still overcoming. But I have it mastered in some spaces and not mastered in other spaces, right? And the ones I've mastered, that's where I can help you. The other ones, I'm still on that journey. So I think I still live with that in the sense of discovering that I bring value just being me, and that's still a journey of mine. And I think that's like when a friend of mine told me today, that I think that's what I was sharing earlier in this podcast, that I don't even have to do anything, that just watching my journey is of value. And I realized I don't have to do something to be of value. And that's something I still have to reconcile. And I'll always have that, because I feel like I need to constantly be of service to be of value. I think that your other question was, what have I let go? I think the things I've let go is that my value is tied to the thing I'm chasing. So metrics, I've let that go completely. Like my value is not going to be in what I wear, where I live, the house I have, where I send my kids to school, nothing. Like my values of how the life I want to live is based on the life that the four of us want, which we do a family manifesto. Like what kind of life do we want, and we create it. And and we all have input in that, and that's all that matters. And so of in terms of like the lifestyle I live, I don't need anyone to validate that or even support it or even agree with it. So I've let go of that. Like the whole thing, I don't care what people think about how I look or dress or live. And I love that. It's so liberating. Like I go to Pilates and my big shirt and everything, and I don't care. And I see still people worrying about around me, and I'm like, oh, so glad I let that go. Like I don't care about that. So, but I still
Yeah.
struggle with the other thing, and we all have those things we still work through.
And I think it's a key component, um, a key thing for people that are making impact in this world that really have stepped into their power
Yeah.
is they reach a point where they don't give a shit about what other
Yep.
people think, right? And they just
Yep.
be themselves and they do what aligns with them. And I
Yep.
just think it's a key component. And I think a lot of people in life that are going to impact people, and there's might be people listening to this podcast right now that want to have more of an impact, that want to create more change, right? And the key component is not giving a shit what
Oh,
anyone else thinks.
yeah. And it's 90% like in your mind. Like you have to, it's so much inner work, like to really, really freely, like when you talk about impact, it's not chasing the next step. It's you gotta know you.
Yeah, yeah,
90% is being loving you, and when you love you, that's when you show up your authentic
yeah,
self. Yeah.
yeah, 100%.
Hmm.
Esther, I'd love you to finish this sentence. To live an
Yeah.
inspired and aligned life is to.
Live in power. Yeah, but your own power. Yeah, live like your own power and truth. And now I'm like keep changing, but I'm like it's that, yeah, like
Yeah,
that. But I
perfect.
power is what I had mentioned, right? Purpose, yeah,
Yeah, perfect. Now, Esther, for those that want to reach out to you, that want to connect with the work that yourself and also Paul are doing with Be Act Change,
yeah.
tell me what are the best ways for them to reach out and connect with you.
Well, as I mentioned, I have the very positive Instagram page. So
The most positive.
yeah, it's all positive, it's all love. B.act.change. So we're on Instagram. That's a very my positive place. I respond to all the DMs there. I don't outsource that because to me, like the community connection is really key. And then also on LinkedIn, I also respond to those one on one. I'm on LinkedIn, just my name. And yeah, so I know people prefer different platforms, but those are the two platforms I'm on. And then I have the book, Creating Your Limitless Life, and it's digital and print. For me, accessibility is really important. So if any of the listeners are like, struggling with finances, I'm more than happy if you reach out to me to send you a free Kindle code. Like, I never want any financial anything to be in the way of getting a book. I was that person in high school where I could not afford a new book. Um, and so I had to read it at the library or sneakily in a bookstore. And so for me, that whole thing is like, no, if you want the book, I can give it to you. So if it's something that you'll use and cherish and things like that. So, but it's available on all the platforms and audio things. And it's my complete coaching program is there. It's all open and transparent because I want you to live in purpose. And I want you to step into your power and make this world better, bring your light. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. When I was getting ready for the podcast today, I was ironing a shirt and I had to wear a bright shirt because it had to match the beautiful personality and the beautiful energy that you bring. I obviously, you know, follow you on Instagram, and you've always just got this beautiful positivity. So for anyone wants to, connect with you, jump onto Instagram, jump into anything that Esther's doing, because it is just positivity. It's a smiling face, and it just
Yeah.
reminds us. I think anyone watching your videos or your content, it just reminds us that there is positivity, there is room for
Yeah.
joy in this world, and I just want to thank you for your insights. I'm truly grateful. It's been an honor to actually finally sit down with you and interview you, and I just want to commend you on the work that you and Paul are doing, and the organisation and the team. And I just can't wait to finally meet in person one day when our
Yeah.
paths cross.
You
And
know, I wish we would have met. I wish, you know what this means? We just have to go back. We were in Australia 2 summers ago with the
yeah,
book, but,
yep,
or our summer for that your winter,
yeah,
whatever, in
yep,
the August. And so
yes,
we have, that means we have to go back again during your winter time, which I do. I
perfect.
want
That
to.
sounds good.
Yeah.
We will
We
welcome you with
will,
open arms.
we will meet in person. We will.
Perfect. Sounds good. All right, you take care, and look forward to connecting again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Esther.